All right, all right. We are going to get started. I thought I was going to have a guest joining us, but maybe not this week. That's fine. So, we're going to get going since it's all right, go that way. Okay. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. We are still on chapter 1, page 27. So I'll keep it marked wherever we at. Chapter 1 is kind of long too. Well, lesson 1 is kind of long still. All right. Finally, 15 minutes later, at exactly 9 o'clock, Rich Dad walked out of his office, said nothing, and signaled with his hand for me to enter. I understand you want to raise or you're going to quit, Rich Dad said as he swiveled in the office chair. Well, you're not keeping your end of the bargain, I blurted out, nearly in tears. It was really frightening for me to confront a grown-up. You said that you would teach me if I worked for you. Well, I've worked for you. I've worked hard. I've given up my baseball games and worked for you, but you haven't kept your word and you haven't taught me anything. You are a crook like everyone in town thinks you are. You're greedy. You want all the money and you don't take care of your employees. You made me wait and don't show me any respect. I'm only a little boy, but I deserve to be treated better. Rich Dad rocked back in his swivel chair, hands up on his chin, and stared at me. Not bad, he said. In less than a month, you sound like most of my employees. What? I asked, now understanding what he was saying. I continued with my grievance. I thought you were going to keep your end of the bargain, teach me. Instead, you want to torture me. That's cruel. That's really cruel. I am teaching you, Rich Dad said quietly. What have you taught me? Nothing, I said angrily. You haven't even talked to me once since I agreed to work for peanuts. 10 cents an hour. Ha! I should notify the government about you. We have child labor laws, you know. My dad works for the government, you know. Wow, said Rich Dad. Now you sound just like most of the people who used to work for me. People I either fired or who have quit. So what do you have to say? I demanded, feeling pretty brave for a little kid. You lied to me. I work for you and you have not kept your word. You haven't taught me anything. How do you know what I have not taught you anything? Asked Rich Dad calmly. And actually he did teach him something, but the little boy doesn't know the lesson yet. Doesn't understand the lesson yet. Well, you never talked to me. I've worked for 3 weeks and you have not taught me anything. I said with a pout. Does teaching mean talking or a lecture? Rich Dad asked. Well, yes, I replied. That's how they teach in school. He said, smiling. But that is not how life teaches you. And I would say that life is the best teacher of all. Got that right. Most of the time, life does not talk to you. It just sorts of push you around, each push in life saying, wake up, there's something I want you to learn. Got that right. What is that? What is this man talking about? I asked myself. Life pushing me around was life talking to me. Now I knew I had to quit my job. I was talking to someone who needed to be locked up. If you learn life lessons, you will do well. If not, life will just continue to push you around. People do 2 things. Some just let life push them around. Others get angry and push back. But they push back against their boss or their jobs or their husband or wife. They do not know it's life that's pushing them. Let's read this chart. So he's getting the life lesson taught to him, but he doesn't realize it. Okay, I had no idea what he was talking about. Life pushes us all around. Some people give up and others fight. A few learn the lesson and move on. They welcome life pushing them around. To these few people, it means that they need and want to learn something. They learn and move on. Most quit and a few like you fight. Rich Dad stood and shut the creaky old wooden window that needed repair. If you learn this lesson, you will grow into a wise, wealthy, and happy young man. If you don't, you will spend your life blaming a job, low pay, or your boss for your problems. You'll live life always hoping for that big break that will solve all your money problems. Rich Dad, I looked over at me to see if I was still listening. His eyes met mine. We stared at each other, communicating through our eyes. Finally, I looked away once I had observed his message. I knew he was right. I was blaming him, and I did ask to learn. I was fighting. Rich Dad, I continue. Or if you're the kind of person who has no guts, you just give up every time life pushes you. If you're that kind of person, you'll live all your life playing safe, doing the right thing, saving yourself for some events that never happens. Then you'll die a born old man. You'll have lots of friends who really like you because you were such a nice, hardworking guy. But the truth is that you let life push you into submission. Deep down, you were terrified of taking risks. You really wanted to win, but the fear of losing was greater than the excitement of winning. So the little boy really doesn't realize that he's getting a lesson taught to him because he doesn't understand. Hey, Coach Blaza, you want to join me? All right. Deep inside, you and only you know you didn't go far for it. You chose to play it safe. Our eyes met again. You've been pushing me around, I asked. Some people might say that. Smile, Rich Dad. I would say that I just gave you a taste of life. What taste of life? I asked, still hungry, but now curious and ready to learn. You boys are the first people who I've ever met who have ever asked me to teach them how to make money. I have more than 150 employees, and not one of them has asked me what I know about money. They ask me for a job and a paycheck, but never to teach them about money. So most will spend the best years of their lives working for money, not really understanding what it is they are working for. I sat there listening intentionally. So when Mike told me you wanted to learn how to make money, I decided to design a course that mirrored real life. I could talk until I was blue in the face, but you wouldn't hear a thing. So I decided to let life push you around a bit so you could hear me. That's why I only paid you 10 cents. So what is the lesson I learned from working for only 10 cents an hour? I asked. That's you're cheap and exploits your workers. Rich Dad rocked back and laughed heartily. Finally, he said, "You're the best. You best change your point of view. Stop blaming me and thinking I'm the problem. If you think I'm the problem, then you have changed me. If you realize that you're the problem, then you can change yourself, learn something, and grow wiser." That is cool. In the future? Okay. This is cool. So he really, he showed him, he was really teaching him a life lesson about, this is very good, but the little boy is still kind of young. The way I take it, he's still kind of young, so he don't quite understand just yet. So most people want everyone else in the world to change but themselves. Let me tell you, it's easier to change yourself than everyone else. I don't understand, I said. Don't blame me for your problems, Rich Dad said, growing impatient. But you only pay me 10 cents. So what are you learning? Rich Dad asked, smiling. That you're cheap, I said with a sly grin. See, you think I'm the problem, said Rich Dad, but you are. Well, keep the attitude and you'll learn nothing. Keep the attitude that I am the problem, and what choices do you have? Well, if you don't pay me more or show me more respect and teach me, I'll quit. Well put, Rich Dad said, and that's exactly what most people do. They quit and go looking for another job, a better opportunity, a higher pay, actually thinking that will solve their problems. In most cases, it won't. So that is good. That's facts, when times get hard, what people do, they quit, they give up. Just like most people give up on their dreams and their goals, they just give up. And so then they revert back to going to get a 9-to-5 job or doing something else besides working towards their dream or their goals. So, where am I at here? Rich just said exactly okay. So, what should I do? I asked. Just take this measly 10 cents an hour and smile? Rich Dad smiled. That's what the other people do. But that's all they do. Waiting for a raise, thinking that more money will solve their problem. Most just accept it, and some take a second job working harder, but accepting a small paycheck. I sat staring at the floor, beginning to understand the lesson Rich Dad was presenting. I could sense it was a taste of life. Yes. Finally, I looked up and asked, so what will solve the problem? This, he said, leaning forward in a chair and tapping me gently on the head. This stuff between your ears. It was at that moment that Rich Dad shared the pivotal point of view that separated him from his employees and my poor dad, and led him to eventually become one of the richest men in Hawaii. Wow, my highly educated poor dad struggled financially all his life. It was a singular point of view that made all the difference over a lifetime. Rich Dad explained the point of view over and over, which I call lesson number 1. The poor and the middle class work for money. The rich have money work for them. That's what he was trying to get him to understand, basically. On that bright Saturday morning, I learned a completely different point of view from what I have been taught by my poor dad. At the age of 9, I understood that both dads wanted me to learn, both dads encouraged me to study, but not the same things. My highly educated dad recommended that I do what he did. Son, I want you to study hard, get good grades, so you can find a safe, secure job with a big company, and make sure it has excellent benefits. That's what all of our parents probably told us back when we was growing up, because that's pretty much what they knew. My rich dad wanted me to learn how money works so I could make it work for me. These lessons I will learn through life with this guidance, not because of the classroom. My rich dad continued my first lesson. I'm glad you got angry about working for 10 cents an hour. If you hadn't got angry, I had simply accepted it. I will have told you that I could not teach you. You see, true learning takes energy, passion, and a burning desire. Anger is a big part of the formula. It sure is. For passion is anger and love combined. When it comes to money, most people want to play it safe and feel secure. So passion does not direct them, fear does. So, is that why they'll take jobs with low pay? I asked. Yes, said Rich Dad. Some people say I exploit people because I don't pay as much as the sugar plantation or the government. I say the people exploit themselves. It's their fear, not mine. But don't you feel you should pay them more? I asked. I don't have to. And besides, more money would not solve their problem. Just look at your dad. He makes a lot of money. He still can't pay his bills. Most people give him more money only get into more debt. That's true. So that's why the 10 cents an hour, I said, smiling, it's part of the lesson. That's right, smiled Rich Dad. You see, your dad went to school and got an extra education so he could get a high-paying job. But he still has money problems because he never learned anything about money in school. On top of that, he believes in money, in working for money. So that was a very good lesson that he was giving this little boy. Actually gave this little boy. And don't you? Oh, and you don't, I asked. No, not really, said Rich Dad. If you want to learn to work for money, then stay in school. That is a great place to learn to do that. But if you want to learn how to have money work for you, then I will teach you that. But only if you want to learn. Wouldn't everyone want to learn that? I asked. No, said Rich Dad, simply because it's easier to learn to work for money, especially if your primary emotions when the subject of money is discussed. I don't understand, I said with a frown. Don't worry about that for now. Just know that it fears that keeps most people working at a job. The fear of not paying their bills, the fear of not paying their bills, the fear of being fired, the fear of not having enough money, and the fear of starting over. That's the price of studying to learn a profession or trade and then working for money. Most people become a slave to money and then they get angry at their boss. So that is so true. Hold on, y'all. All right, learning to have money work for you is a completely different course of study, I asked. Absolutely, Rich Dad answered, absolutely. We sat in silence on that beautiful Hawaiian Saturday morning. My friends had just started their Little League baseball game. But for some reason, I was now thankful I had decided to work for 10 cents an hour. I sensed that I was about to learn something my friends wouldn't learn in school. Ready to learn? Asked Rich Dad. Absolutely, I said with a grin. I have kept my promise. I've been teaching you from afar, my Rich Dad said. At 9 years old, you've gotten a taste of what it feels like to work for money. Just multiply your last month by 50 years and you will have an idea of what most people spend their life doing. Trading time for money. I don't understand, I said. How did you feel waiting in line to see me? Once to get hired and then once to ask for more money. Terrible, I said. If you choose to work for money, that is what life will be like, said Rich Dad. And how did you feel when Miss Martin dropped 3 dimes in your hand for the 3 hours of work? I felt like it wasn't enough. It seemed like nothing. I was disappointed, I said. And that is how most employees feel when they look at their paycheck, especially after all the taxes and other deductions are taken out. At least you got 100%. You mean most workers don't get paid anything or everything? I asked with amazement. Heavens no, said Rich Dad. The government always takes his share first. He sure do. How do they do that? I asked. Taxes, said Rich Dad. You're taxed when you earn. You're taxed when you spend, and you're taxed when you save. You're taxed when you die. Why do people let the government do that to them? The rich don't. said Rich Dad with a smile. The poor and the middle class do. I'll bet you that I earn more than your dad, yet he pays more in taxes. How can that be? I asked. At my age, that made no sense to me. Why would someone let the government do that to them? Rich Dad rocked slowly and silently in his chair, just looking at me. You ready to learn? He asked. I nodded my head slowly. As I said, there's a lot to learn. Learning how to have money work for you is a lifetime study. Most people go to college for 4 years and their education ends. I already know that my study of money will continue over a lifetime, simply because the more I find out, the more I find out I need to know. Most people never study the subject. They go to work, get their paychecks, balance their checkbooks, and then that's it. Then they wonder why they have money problems. They think that more money will solve the problem and don't realize that there is a lack of financial education that is the problem. So my dad has tax problem because he doesn't understand money, I asked, confused. Look, said Rich Dad, taxes are just one small section on learning how to have money work for you. Today I just wanted to find out if you still have the passion to learn more about money. Most people don't. I mean, I wish I had parents like this trying to tell me at 9. They want to go to school, learn a profession, have fun at their work, and earn lots of money. One day they wake up with big money problems, and then they can't stop working. That's the price of only knowing how to work for money instead of studying how to have money work for you. So, do you still have a passion to learn? Asked Rich Dad. I nodded my head. Good, said Rich Dad. Now get back to work. This time I will pay you nothing. What? I asked in amazement. You heard me, nothing. You will work the same 3 hours every Saturday, but this time you will not be paid 10 cents per hour. You said you wanted to learn and to not work for money, so I'm not going to pay you anything. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I've already had this conversation with Mike, and he's already working, dusting and stacking cans good for free. You better hurry and get back there. That's not fair, I shouted. You've got to pay something. You said you wanted to learn. If you don't learn this now, you'll grow up to be like the 2 women and the older man sitting in my living room, working for money and hoping I don't fire them. Or like your dad, earning lots of money only to be in debt up to his eyeballs, hoping more money will solve his problems. If that's what you want, I'll go back to the original deal of 10 cents an hour. Or you can do what most adults do, complain that there is not enough money and not enough pay, quit and go look for another job. But what do? I asked. Rich Dad tapped me on the head. Use this, he said. If you use this well, you would soon thank me for giving you an opportunity, and you would grow into a rich man. I stood there, still not believing what a raw deal I was handed. I came to ask for a raise, and somehow I was instead working for nothing. Yeah, this book is awesome. I've read it a long time ago, but I've been wanting to read it again. And it has some updates in it, too. More for like today's, what we're going through like now in today's reality. So, yeah. It's a real good book. Rich Dad tapped me on the head again and said, use this now. Get out here and get back to work. Now, lesson 1. The rich don't work for money. I didn't tell my poor dad that I wasn't being paid. He wouldn't have understood, and I didn't want to try to explain something I didn't understand myself. For more than 3 weeks, Mike and I worked 3 hours every Saturday for nothing. The work didn't bother me. and the routine got easier, but it was the missed baseball games and not being able to afford to buy a few comic books that got to me. Rich Dad stopped by at noon on the third week. We heard his truck pull up in the parking lot and sputter when the engines was turned off. He entered the store and greeted Mrs. Martin with a hug. After finding out how things were going in the store, he reached to the ice cream freezer, pulled out 2 bars, paid for them, and signaled to Mike and me. "Let's go for a walk, boys." We crossed the street, dodging a few cars, and walked across the large grassy field with a few adults while playing softball. Sitting down at a lone picnic table, he handed Mike and me the treats. "How's it going, boys?" "Okay," Mike said. I nodded in agreement. "Learn anything yet?" Rich Dad asked. Mike and I looked at each other, shrugged our shoulders, and shook our heads in unison. "Avoiding one of life's biggest traps." "Well, you boys have better start thinking. You're staring at one of the life's biggest lessons. If you learn it, you'll enjoy a life of great freedom and security. If you don't, you'll wound up like Mrs. Martin and most of the people playing softball in this port. They work hard for very little money, clinging to the illusion of job security and looking forward to a 3-week vacation each year, making a skimpy pension after 45 years of service. If that excites you, I'll give you a raise to 25 cents an hour." Listen, no thanks. No thanks. "But these are good, hard-working people. Are you making fun of them?" I demanded. A smile came over Rich Dad's face. "Mrs. Martin is like a mother to me. I will never be that cruel. I may sound unkind because I'm doing my best to point something out to the two of you. I want to expand your point of view so you can see something most people never have the benefit of seeing because their vision is too narrow. Most people never see the trap they're in." Mike and I sat there uncertain of this message. He sounded cruel, yet we could sense that he was trying to drive home a point. With a smile, Rich Dad said, "Doesn't that 25 cents an hour sound good? Doesn't it make your heart beat a little faster?" I shook my head no, but it really did. 25 cents an hour would be big bucks to me. "Okay, I'll pay you $1 an hour," Rich Dad said with a sly grin. Now my heart started to race. My brain was screaming, "Take it, take it." I could not believe what I was hearing. Still, I said nothing. "Okay, $2 an hour." My little brain and heart nearly exploded. After all, it was 1956 and he paid $2 an hour would have made me the richest kid in the world. I couldn't imagine earning that kind of money. I wanted to say yes. I wanted the deal. I could picture a new bicycle, a new baseball glove, and a adoration of my friends when I flashed some cash. On top of that, Jimmy and his friends, rich friends, could never call me poor again. But somehow my mouth stayed shut. The ice cream had melted and was running down my hands. Rich Dad was looking at 2 boys staring back at him, eyes wide open and brains empty. He was testing us, and he knew there was a part of our emotions that wanted to take the deal. He understood that every person has a weak and needy part of their soul that can be brought. And he knew that every individual also had a part of their soul that was resilient and could never be bought. It was only a question of which one was stronger. So I am going to stop right there. So right now, I was doing it on Mondays. I might add another day in, but if I do, it'll be, during the week and around the same time. But I've been so busy. I'm going to stop right here. Okay. Because of tax season, so I didn't want to didn't know how my schedule was. But so yeah, probably Mondays, and then I may can do something on like you read next week. Okay, good. Yeah, I was gonna say I may do Wednesdays, but most likely it'd be once a week. But we still in lesson 1, and lesson 1 is kind of it's lesson 1 is long. We still got a few more pages. Yeah. So, and then we got this study note. So lesson 1 is kind of long, but it is what it is. This is a good book to read, and good book to start off the year. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So, well, I hope you guys liked, and join me again next Monday around the same time, if I decide to do it during the week, which it probably won't be this week, but if I do decide to bring another day on, I'll put the banner up and we'll go from there. All right. Have a good night, guys.